Poor SHALNARK looks really confused here because basically what has happened is that he has discovered the subscribe button for the New World Review, the pressing of which will grant him regular Hunt Hunter content uploaded straight into his YouTube feed. Sadly, he looks like he will be unlikely to figure that out. However, you, good viewer, well, I know that you have what it takes to be truly great. Hello and welcome to the New World Review, your source for everything anime and manga, and today we are here with the ever important task of ranking the Phantom Troupe. Why are we doing this? I don't know. How are we doing this? Good question. As we all know, ranking characters objectively is a super difficult task, especially in the world of Hunter x Hunter. So what I have done is put up a poll in the community section of the New World Review, asking you all to vote for your favorite member. And also, as a new addition to this poll format, multiple votes were allowed. So for example, if you could not bring yourself to choose between delightful FEITAN and the gorgeous, alluring, enticing Franklin, then I got you. Because hey, if you really wanted to, then you could have given every member a vote, although statistically speaking, that would mean the equivalent of no votes whatsoever. So with that in mind, for this poll, we received just under 15,000 votes cast. Just under. 22 votes away from such a glorious round number, but I'm really excited about this actually, because this should give us quite a fine impression on how the fanbase feels about our funky troupe members. Before we get into the results though, there are two exceptions to this poll that you should probably all know about before we dive into it though. Firstly, we are not taking into account a certain member who joined during the Succession War. I don't know, I just didn't think it would be fair, but I suppose at the same time HISOKA was included, so whatever, feel free to call me a hypocrite. And secondly, the non-canon troupe member Goth Dude Face was also not included because he is not canon and most people haven't seen Phantom Rouge anyway. But with that out of the way, let's begin, and in 14th place we have KORTOFI, who secured a mighty 94 votes, which out of close to 15,000 is, it's not great. Sorry little guy. Then again, I'm not really sure how much more we should have expected. KORTOFI was always a quiet background player in the troupe, although I personally do really love his Nen ability Gallery Fake, which allows him to make temporary copies of objects. Although even then, CHROLLO borrowed and went on to use this ability much more effective than KORTOFI probably ever could, so it is hard to give him points just for that. So what does that leave us with? Well, he's physically confirmed to be the weakest member of the troupe, he is more than likely not one of the founding members, and he has never had one true moment of importance within this story. Plus, in the official data book, his name is spelt as KORTOFI, although everyone's name gets butchered in that book, so we probably cannot hold that against him. So instead, we're just going to move on to 13th place, where we find one Franklin Bordeaux, having managed to attain 178 vote things. And I do think it's quite impressive that he got almost twice as many votes as KORTOFI, given that Franklin inhabits a very similar role in Hunter x Hunter, a more silent background member of the troupe. And I mean, even right now during the events of the Succession War, whilst every other troupe member is out there getting crap done, Franklin is just quietly sitting on his own in a cafeteria, eating a delicious dinner. And you know what, actually, I respect that. I'm all on board with the mindset of just kicking back, enjoying life, and then waiting for trouble to come to you. And when it does, you just promptly remove the tips of your fingers and blast it with Nen bullets. Simple philosophy. And because we brought up KORTOFI's name, let's also mention that in the official Hunt x Hunter data book, Franklin is written as Falunky, and actually on various pieces of merchandise, his name is Falunkulin. But moving on, into 12th place, we have our famous boxing mummy BONOLENOV with a modest 204 vote clicks. And while he does form another pillar of the quiet segment of the troupe members, BONOLENOV has the key advantage of having had some time to shine during the Chimera Ant arc, in which he demonstrated the ability to conjure the planet Jupiter and crush his enemies. And obviously this is not legit Jupiter, but a mini Jupiter lookalike, and that is still quite honestly one of the more devastating invocations of conjuration that we have ever seen in the series. Although very notably, in order to conjure anything, this mummy first needs to bust a move and perform a dance, but really, even though we've only seen him in action ever so briefly, this man deserves a hell of a lot of respect for how he wields Nen. And as for the data book, in their infinite wisdom, they have decided that his name is now BONOLENOV, which actually I think is the closest to maybe accurate that we've encountered so far, so sure, good job on that. In 11th place now, securing a mere 2 more votes than BONOLENOV, is KALLUTO Zoldyck. And the thing I find most intriguing regarding KALLUTO is the decision to join the Phantom Troupe in the first place. I'm not going to go into all of the options here because I have another video in the works for that, but his situation is simply fascinating, as well as the whole discussion surrounding why KALLUTO knows how to use Nen, whilst Killua, his older brother, did not, as are his demonstrated Nen abilities, which, as with all black-haired Zoldicks, is based in the area of manipulation, and KALLUTO uses the medium of paper, which can be seen here in these adorable Phantom Troupe super happy friendship cutouts. But from here on out, we will cease referring to him as KALLUTO, because the databook spells his name as KALLUTO. So what can we do? Hunter x Hunter really bringing into question the legitimacy of databooks in general here. And breaking into the top 10 now, we first land in the lap of PAKUNODA, who has taken a massive step up, acquiring 454 votes, more than twice as many as KALLUTO in 11th place. But even if we don't take her beach attire into account, I can really see why PAKUNODA would present a tier of her own. PAKUNODA actually forms a surprising heart and soul of the York New City arc, and she is one of the core reasons why the Phantom Troupe are able to be humanized into such a stunning set of antagonists through her quite frankly noble sacrifice under Kurapika's judgment chain conditions. So I have a soft spot for PAKUNODA, but I also love her because she is an often overlooked specialist, which are always some of the most intriguing abilities that this series has to offer. And as for the databook in this situation, it would appear that they had an intern mash their head against a keyboard, and what came out was PAKUNODA. Taking another leap up in votes now, SHALNARK manipulates his way into 9th place with 626 ticks of profound approval from all of you. And in my experience, SHALNARK tends to be a love him or hate him kind of character, as all blunt bowl cuts will be for the rest of human history. And I think that he initially doesn't come off as a figure who has really earned his place in the troupe, because his ability seems kind of like a budget illumy. But when you really delve into it, you realize that SHALNARK has catered his menus very, very carefully and to extract maximum potential, which is on full display when he goes so far as to manipulate himself in autopilot mode, thus becoming the first and probably only character in Hunter x Hunter to officially turn into a Super Saiyan. And there's just so much more to this guy than we got to see of him in the series, which might be quite criminal of Togashi, but not as criminal as the databook spelling of SHALNARK, which is SHANORKU. Serious business time now, and getting into number 8 we have UVOGIN, a man who brute forced his way into just under 700 votes. And this is my first real surprise of the ranking, because UVOGIN is one of my personal favorite members of the troupe, but I think that's because he is one of the most well explored, with his own tragic but kind of vicious character arc during York New City. And you know, initially he seemed like a huge meathead and your standard anime strongman, but he went on to display a great degree of intelligence and loyalty that really makes him stand out. And I will never forget the moment where he told Kurapika to just go to hell, even knowing that that very action would directly lead to his death. He was a very strong character, and certainly not just in the physical sense. Although in that latter regard, he does still remain quite possibly the most powerful pure enhancer we've met in the series, and he really did show just how extraordinarily dangerous that affinity can be. And as for the databook name, well, this is what we've got to work with. UVOGIN is now Ambereddraws. Yeah. Moving on to 7th place now, and we have the Queen of Suck, being SHIZUKU, who gobbled up 739 votes in that there poll, which, you know, I don't think is too unexpected. SHIZUKU was always bound to generate fans for reasons, and a couple of those reasons can be seen on display in this picture, but in general, she's quite a charming individual and someone who does not necessarily blend in with what you would initially think the Phantom Troupe is. For all intents and purposes, SHIZUKU is a highly aloof beacon of neutrality who has somehow gotten involved in the great underworld of thievery and mass murder, and I would love to know the story of how she stepped into this realm. At this point, all we seem to know is that she may have been from Meteor City, although not an original member of the troupe. In fact, she replaced the member who was killed by Silver Zoldyck, whoever that was. And here the databook makes the least sense thus far, with SHIZUKU's name being spelled as Chizok. Moving on up to number 6 now, we find PHINKS, a PHINKS Magub to be precise, who casually walks into this ranking with 836 votes. Pretty good for a guy who mostly makes his way through life in a tracksuit. What he does have going in his favor though, is the serious tough guy appeal. The more I see of PHINKS, the more I enjoy his presence in the series, and I am quite excited to see how he progresses in the Succession War arc. I also really enjoy his extremely simple but stupidly powerful Hatsu, called the Ripper Cyclotron, whereby his punches increase in power in direct correlation to the number of times he rotates his arm. And it makes me wonder what the limit to this is, if indeed there is a limit at all. Could PHINKS, for example, maybe after roughly a couple of 100,000 or even millions of wines, potentially even one-shot Meruem, for example? But the best thing about PHINKS is that his databook name is mostly right, at least phonetically anyway, spelling it as PHINKS. Top 5 time now, and we begin with Nobunaga. A bit of a surprise appearance here for me. I mean, I do like the guy, but he still remains one of the lesser explored members of the troupe, although I suppose what we do know is that he tends to look quite cool indeed. Yes, even when cross-eyed. And he has the whole sword factor going on, because characters who use swords automatically earn an amped up degree of coolness. That is just the law of anime. Now, rather unfortunately, for whatever reason, I could not find Nobunaga's name according to the databook, but I think we've seen enough examples now to make an accurate guess as to what they may have dubbed him. And I'm going to assume that his name in the databook is NewWorldReview. As for 4th place, we find ourselves with Machi, who is the first character in this ranking to gather more than 1,000 votes from this fantastic fanbase, 1,169 to be precise, and precision is important when it comes to Machi because that is what she's all about. Just like with the Nobunaga sword effect, string users in anime also come with their own degree of automatic respect and reverence. But I have to say the thing I love most about Machi is that she simply doesn't give an F. Although to be fair, that has quite rapidly changed in the manga events, and right now, Machi is quite honestly one of the most intriguing members of the troupe to be following. And if you do want to find her, then all you have to do is look up her quote-unquote official name, which is Mati ko Martinet. So according to this, her first name actually goes on to form part of her second name, which is kind of like calling me Liam McLiamson. To 3rd place now we have FEITAN, and the gap between he and Machi could better be described as a sort of gaping chasm, with FEITAN more than doubling her vote total, sitting in the mid-2000s. I don't know who could possibly be shocked by this particular result though, because FEITAN just has everything going for him. He's a dark, brooding lad with a fantastic design, a great sense of sickening humor, and even a sword to boot. In addition to this, he also has a Hatsu that allows him to conjure a miniature sun, so, you know, take that, BONOLENOV. I mean, what were you thinking, making Jupiter when you could have made a sun? Such child's play. And according to the data book, his name is spelt as Hayton, which makes him sound significantly less cool. Not as horrible as our number 2 contender though, because just wait for this one. Because in 2nd place, we have the leader of the troupe himself, CHROLLO Lucifer, managing to hoard over 3,000 votes all to himself. Very greedy indeed. And I think that this one is pretty obvious. No, he does not have a sword or strings, but that wouldn't stop him from stealing one as an ability, or acquiring any other ability for that matter, because CHROLLO is a reservoir of nen intrigue, and watching him in combat comprises some of my favorite experiences in all of Hunter x Hunter. Plus, he does have a proper boss design, one that really makes you stand up and pay attention, kind of like his name in the data book, which is Quillroth Lucifer, because that's a name. But to finish things off, I present to all of you in 1st place, HISOKA. And I'm sure that some of you will take issue with me including him on this list, but I just couldn't bring myself not to. For a huge chunk of the series, he was associated with the troupe, and look what would have happened if I didn't. I suspect that we would have had the exact same ranking, except everybody moves up 1 place. But HISOKA is an obvious fan favorite of not just Hunter x Hunter, but the whole world of anime and manga in general, and it's always going to be hard to deny him a victory in any popularity-based setting. Almost as hard as it was for the data book writers to deny his obvious name, which they got kind of close, but in the end, they landed on HISOKA. I mean, God, you guys got so close this time around. And yet, so ever so far. But yeah, that is your Phantom Troupe ranking, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to everyone who cast one of the near 15,000 votes. And next up, I have a poll asking who your favorite members of the Zoldyck family are. And once again, you will be allowed multiple votes for this one. The post is currently up in the community section of the New World Review, and I very much look forward to seeing the results. But what do you guys think? Please do leave your thoughts in the comments below, or even join my Discord server. And if you're keen for some more Hunter x Hunter content, then please do go and check out some of my other videos, or even subscribe to the channel for regular Hunter x Hunter glory delivered straight into your YouTube feed. But for now, this has been the New World Review, and I'll see you next time.